and retired people, and just a lot of people they know. And
Did you feel like you were part of any kind of sleeper programs, or were you like part of like the Phoenix program at all?
I was part of it. Yeah, but I mean it's ongoing. It's ongoing. So
It's ongoing.
yeah. I mean I'm sure I'm basically part of a sort of a sleeper program. I mean they program you. I mean they program you to stay, you know, to this sort of mission that I'm on, you know, with YouTube and everything. It's you know, it's well, I mean, it was basically programmed into me because I basically, under the influence of psychedelic drugs, I'm prescient, you see, and I recounted everything that was going to happen, you know. And they said, "Oh, well, that's very interesting." You know, they're taking a record, I'm sure, at least an audio record of that, and so that way they can coordinate on down the line different events, you know, so they can make it go their way, essentially. And they're going to aggrandize themselves, manipulating different businesses, and that's what that whole Starbucks thing was about. And in fact, I went into a Starbucks like two years after the incident where I was drugged, and I was evidently they I don't know who did it. Maybe, I mean, they led me to believe how they did it. They led me to believe that it was perhaps a barista, you know, who did it to me, you know, who was working there. Because I was going into this one particular Starbucks in South Eugene, and that was like the only place that I was going. I was really on a budget right then. I was like writing a lot. I just like that. I like the atmosphere of the place, and I just it was just kind of a quiet atmosphere. Anyway, so. But however it was done, they had me. I think on some kind of maybe they dosed me with some kind of nanotech crystals, some strange drug combination. And in this book that I'm reading about all this MK Ultra patents, they have all kinds of different drugs they use, not just LSD and scopolamine. You know, it's very sophisticated stuff that they worked out like in the 1960s, and. I don't know what they were doing, but I had for like 3 days straight. Maybe in conjunction with these electromagnetic waves coming from a microwave emitter, I felt these etheric rats, these invisible big rats, just biting into me, like ripping away flesh, and it was. I mean, it wasn't as painful as though it would, you know, as it actually would be, but it was just very disturbing, you know. So I stayed awake for like 3 or 4 days, and while this was happening, you know, I couldn't. Well, when I'd exit that room, it would stop happening. But whenever I went back in there, or I tried to get some sleep, you know, that's in this little room, and my neighbors under the floor in the lower apartment, they were using a microwave emitter on me, a pretty powerful one. And so it was evidently the drug combination, the nanotech crystals, or whatever it was. But so these etheric rats were attacking me, and I could even hear them. I could even hear them. I could not see them, you know. And then after that, it was as though when I closed my eyes, I would see maggots consuming my entire body, and they just left nothing but bones. It was just really a really disturbing situation. So, but anyway, like 2 years after that, I went into a Starbucks, and you know, from time to time, periodically I'd test the coffee, see if it had any effect, and sure enough, it did, and just made me really foggy and caused these little strange pains in my head, and then so after. But I was just in there and I bought some food. Evidently, that's not drugs. And this security type, he came in. He sat down at the table next to me. He gets on his phone and he's talking about how, we thought this wasn't going to happen anymore. You know, as though I had been used as this unwitting agent for some kind of extortion scheme. You know. Like these people these deep state assholes had drugged me this way, so causing me to produce that video, etc., etc. It was caused a stir, you know, and so business dropped off in Starbucks in general, and so anyway, he said we thought this was going to stop happening. You know, like he's communicating with some people who are, you know, blackmailing the corporation or what, you know, extorting the corporation out of money somehow through my actions, as though I was just an actor, you know, as though this didn't even really happen. I'm just a really great actor, you know. He did this, you know, very convincing video, you know, along with his brother, who's also an actor. My brother's a professional actor, so. Sure, it's true. I used to do some acting. You know, I was in some plays and so on. I did some commercials and so on, but I mean, that's all part of it. You know, that's part of why I was recruited by the CIA in the Marine Corps, or just some black ops organization within the Marine Corps that I dubbed the Order of the Shining Serpent, to indicate that they're sort of satanic, but I don't know, they're very I don't know, mystical, you know, shining or psychic, or, you know. So that's kind of what. Anyway, so I mean, these people are involved in all this wild stuff, and I was an oracle for the Marine Corps. And they had me read these intelligence reports, and then they had me take some kind of psychedelic concoction. Sometimes it was laced with menstrual blood, when they wanted to know more about their wives and how to negotiate those relationships, because it was such a strain on relationships and being in the military, and deploying and being away from your loved ones, and so I mean yeah. Anyway, I've got these altars, and it's really I don't know. My oracle altar was this sorceress, this like Portuguese sorceress. I think it's a past life, and so they would see me assume this identity of this Portuguese sorceress, you know, who did similar stuff, you know, basically back, I don't know, 300 years ago or so, and that was either funny or slightly arousing to some people. And after that, I was used as I do have one memory anyway of being used as a kind of a sex slave, but I don't know if it was extensive at all, because I was a real, you know. Another thing, you know, I was really great at. I'm a good martial artist, and but in those days I was a real terror, and so they didn't want to. You know, they'd be dealing with I don't know, a cat with claws, so to speak. You know, so I don't know it. So it was, but anyway, I would just help them with the strategy, essentially, and they ran by different scenarios with me. They revealed that the Earth is actually flat, and there's real estate beyond Antarctica. Every direction to the south, there's more land. I don't know how big it is actually. This thing that we're on. I don't know if there's a dome or anything, you know, but it's I don't know, maybe boundless, I don't know, but they're out there. I mean, I've had some little visions and stuff about, they said they were going to clone me because they kind of like me, you know, they're going to, and they did that during the last horse year, because I'm an earth horse, but these must be what, so it goes earth, it goes earth, metal, the elemental cycle, what's the next one? Anyway, these most recent horses, they're like 4 years old or something. But I had a crazy vision of what they did to this crop of young horses, like at the age of like 2 years old. And these, evidently there's some kind of maybe a genetically modified beetle. It's got this sort of iridescent coloring, you know, the way some insects do. And it's kind of like Labradorite or something, but it's kind of a rainbow colored. But they're mostly black. There's blackish rainbow colored. These big beetles, the size about terriers, like a Yorkshire Terrier, and they left them all in this jungle, right? Like under the canopy, and they cleared away most of the brush. All these big beetles were going around, snipping parts off, like fingers and noses and ears, and you know, just making little gashes, you know, whatever choice little parts they like to eat. And they were doing this to traumatize these little kids. Because they knew they had to. They knew they had to do that to create the kind of personality, the kind of mean, vicious personality, you know. Because I didn't want to have them. For some reason, these people like circumcision. I don't want them circumcised. I myself am not circumcised, and I think it makes a person a little more mean-spirited. Evidently, it has some kind of effect on permanent effect on the nervous system or pain response. But you know, I'm not trying to be insensitive to people who were mutilated like that. And, I mean, they did that to my own father, so you know, whom I really respect. But anyway. But the thing is, what they do is they use stem cell treatments, which can regrow like a whole limb. You could chop your own arm off, and it could regrow within like 6 months. So that's what they did with those kids, evidently, or at least that's maybe part of a mind control script. You know, it's just part of some record, the recording they did with me, and you know, this is part of the little make believe sci-fi, you know, thing they do to motivate you, to keep you going. Like, it doesn't matter if I die, you know, well, I already have, in essence, I have descendants, or at least clones or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not even, well, actually, I'm not sure that these they really were clones. They looked a lot like me, but then I had this other memory of this woman. And we actually, in this dream, we traipsed along together, and we came across this terrible scene of carnage, you know. Like, there's like 200 of them, you know. And I'm assuming that perhaps they're our offspring. The first time I took mushrooms, at least that I actually recall, you know, this was after the Marine Corps, you know, when I had a recollection of having sex with some woman. I don't know, but it was really just incredible. All the confluence of the chakra storms and all this. You know, it was just incredible, and it was the kind of experience that a young person would have. A really, you know, like a person who. You know, is just younger, like in their 20s, you know, because, you know, as you grow older, everything becomes less intense, and, you know, but yeah, anyway, so it may have been our offspring, in fact. That might have been approved, but it's just, I don't know, you don't, all the manipulation, you just don't, you get to where you don't trust your instincts anymore. You don't trust any kind of psychic capability you have. You suspect that it is just manipulated. You suspect it's a result of the subliminal programming you received the night prior, and or it's maybe just currently going on. So it's I don't know. And they've used all kind. Subsequently to degrade me and to just destroy my mind and make me less credible. They've evidently they've used gabapentin, which is like it degrades the nervous system, and they've also I believe they've used mercury vapor out of spent fluorescent bulbs. That would be an easy source, and. So yeah, I don't know. I've noticed a lot of mental decline, cognitive decline. My vocabulary has been reduced quite a bit, and I don't know. I saw all this in the long chain prevision of my entire life that actually stretched beyond my life after my death. And of course, I saw different possibilities depending on what path I take. I saw all these different horrible things, but so it's kind of like I'm a nerd to so much of this, and anyway, it takes quite a bit to I'll cry at times, but And it's like I've seen all this before, and the life that I'm living currently in the now, it's like a faded copy of the long chain prevision, essentially. So it's like it is a dream in essence. Like I already lived my life, and anyway, kind of. I'd like to, not. I don't know. I'd like to have more engagement, and I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to do something, different than keep traipsing down these dark paths, I realize I've been like operating at the lowest level of vibration pretty consistently, just to survive, because there's been many opportunities to go out with a big bang, so to speak, and but yeah, I don't know. So I'm just, I've been playing it real conservative, writing this. I wrote this science fiction novel, Emo Apocalypse in Summertime, and I don't know. It's about a mass shooter actually, and his little adventure. But we come to find out it's actually this virtual reality video game that exists in like the 2040s. Where you actually you go into this like chrysalis machine, like sort of chrysalis type device, and it's electromagnetic, and it's very similar to what the machine that the CIA programmed me with. It's part of the programming, but basically it's like a whole sensorium experience where you're actually thinking the thoughts and feeling the things, and that some historical person experienced, because it's derived from their cells, their clone cells, or their cells grown in a little petri dish. It's derived from their clone. Actually, they clone a person and then they. Anyway, so that's the basis for this. This we find out it's a video game. The whole thing is just a video game. It's very it's a very unique piece of writing, and it's become infamous, and it has caused me to be very highly, even more heavily targeted, because I betrayed them with that, and so. But anyway, I was involved in the black operation, which ensured that 9/11 happened, because the Saudi hijackers, their programming was breaking down. It needed continual reinforcement, You know, for them to say, okay, well, there's these 72 virgins that are waiting for me, and you know, like they were there in San Diego, and they were as part of their little cover. You know, they were going to a lot of strip clubs, and they were going to some bars and the nicer restaurants there in San Diego. So, I mean, some of us mind-controlled agents in the Marine Corps were evidently being utilized to we drugged their drinks. We got in little fights with them, and I remember pushing one guy into his own stream of urine while he was in the restroom and at the urinal. I just bumped into him and pretended it was an accident, and yeah. So basically, I mean, they were using microwave emitters in the lower apartment and the apartment to the side of those guys. And I actually went by there on leave. I walked down the street. I was just I thought somehow that I had never visited San Diego before, you know, but I actually visited many times. It's very close by to Camp Pendleton, and you know. Anyway, they recognized me. They're out there. They were drinking some beer out on the balcony there, and they recognized. They're like, yeah, you know. And I thought, oh, those guys must be under surveillance. Well, you know, they are Middle Eastern, and I'd read the book. They had me read Black Sunday by Thomas Harris, which describes this big time. A fictional terrorist event at like the Super Bowl, I think, yeah. So I was all hot to trot. I thought, oh, it's inevitable. That's something like that's going to happen. Well, we may as well just cause something like that to happen to get us in the next big war, because Russia and China are they're advancing, and they're going to conquest all the minerals and the oil and everything out of the Middle East, and we got to keep America on top, because America, we're more moral and ethical, and we have some freedom in this country, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, America's last best hope, and so I'm going to do my damnedest here, and I'm just being very pragmatic, so. That's what happened. As far as I know, anyway. And when I saw the buildings fall, I thought, oh wow, there's a secondary element in there. They'd rigged them up. They'd rigged them up for demolition. And of course, we find out like 2 weeks before there was some kind of maintenance thing going on, and like the whole floor shut down and all this. And sure enough, I mean, they were probably just inspecting everything, making sure all the charges were all, were still good, all the connections and everything. And I've done some little controlled demolition myself with EOD, so. Anyway, I thought, wow, that was great job, I somehow thought that some other Middle Eastern terrorist had done that, they had somehow gone into the building, but no, that's of course not what happened. That's ridiculous. So, anyway, you have any questions about anything there, Colleen, or like me to elaborate on anything?
First of all, thank you so much just for coming in, for being here. Do you feel missing time at all? Johnboy?
I have had those events when I was, interestingly, I was, like some days, I've noticed that I would go out for a walk, and I'd go places that I'd never been. I'd encounter people that I'd never, talked to. I'd have odd conversations with them. And sometimes, yeah, I was. I mean, hours would pass, and then I'd notice, you know, like on my watch. I usually wear a watch. I used to. That many hours had passed, and in the Marine Corps, it was very strange. I would pretty consistently think it was a day later. Like on the weekend, I would think I would come in on Sunday thinking it was Monday. Sometimes I'd even come in on Saturday thinking it was Monday, and I had to show up for the formation. You know, it was pretty crazy. Or I guess that's pretty common for people in some kind of MK Ultra program.
How do you feel about UFOs, John Boy?
I've actually seen it. I actually saw one in Iraq in 2003. I was at this Air Force base. Well, they said it was an Air Force base. I guess the Iraqi military didn't have much of an Air Force. I guess they had some helicopters or something, but it was like the middle of the day, and I was playing on this Game Boy, and it was a really hard game. I borrowed it from one of my troops, and so I set it down, and I looked up, you know, and I at first I thought it was like a high-flying flock of birds, but I noticed they were in this perfect formation. I thought, well, and there's so many of them, I thought, well, do birds really fly in a perfect formation like that, and there being just this multitude of birds? No, that must be aircraft. Well, they must be like in sync via some kind of computer. They're kind of remote controlled, maybe. What you know? And I wondered, do we have anything like that? Is that U.S. military technology? I kept looking at it, and over time, it just became very apparent that I was looking at something that was half transparent. It must have been like 500 yards across, and it was kind of roughly triangular shape. Well, it was shaped like a what is it called? Mantis ray, that sea creature, like a shark, related to a shark, a manta ray. And so I watched it for 10 minutes, and I looked around, you know, from time to time. I'd look around, you know, is there anybody near? I could point it out to them, but they're just a little too far away. And I looked back up, and just kept watching it, you know, for about 10 minutes, and finally I just got bored as it was near the horizon, so I stopped watching it. And other than that, I've seen orbs. I've seen red orbs float over, but there was evidently there was a line of vortexes, and they had all these churches all on that one street. This was years later, and evidently that's pretty common to have churches on a place where there's vortexes. But yeah, I saw a red orb roughly fly by, roughly, I don't know, 25 feet up. It was summertime. I was sleeping in the backyard of this house. And that's about it as far as UFOs.
John Boy, this is incredible. Can we resume in just a little bit?
Okay.